Hello and welcome. We are so happy to have you here for Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling's virtual college exploration. We are thrilled that Marquette University is joining us tonight. And I just want to go through some housekeeping things. My name is Laura Doherty. I'm the Associate Director of Admission at Southwestern University down in Georgetown, Texas. Why am I talking to you about Illinois? I used to work at Fenwick High School, and I have a very close association with Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling. So that's why I'm here. So if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A button, and we will get to them as soon as they've done their presentation. And just so you know, your camera and your microphone are off. And there are other presentations. I know we're all about Marquette right now, but there are other presentations that will be going on. So if you haven't already, sign up for those, please. And recordings are going to be available. So now I'm going to turn it over to Marquette University.
Awesome. Thanks for that introduction, Laura. My name is Rosa Reiber. I am one of our Chicago Regional Admission Counselors, talking to you today live from my apartment here in Berwyn, Illinois. If you know where that is, it's one of the first suburbs west of the city of Chicago. But tonight I am joined by two of my colleagues, Grant Egan and Myra Rodriguez, and we're going to be talking to you a little bit about discovering yourself at Marquette. And what that means for us. We definitely have core values as an institution that Myra is really going to be breaking down a little bit later. So that's why self is kind of spelled a little funky. But before we get started, something that we really like to do, I know that this virtual world can seem a bit disconnected. So a way that we really like to still connect with you and get to know you and really know who our audience is through polls. So if you can, log on maybe on your phone or whatever device that you're on to menti.com. Use that code 142133 to log in and let us know what grade you are in this evening. We certainly have some information that I think is going to be helpful for students no matter where they are in the process, but definitely later on in the presentation, we're going to be going through and talking a little bit specifically about the timeline, especially that seniors can be anticipating now as well. So for a minute there, it was tied. We had 1-1-1, but it looks like seniors are kind of winning, just as I suspected. But juniors, awesome that you're here. And thank you, whoever you are, sophomores who are joining the call. I think it's awesome to go ahead and start thinking about Marquette. Go ahead and really start thinking about your college search and ways that you can really start determining and evaluating what type of school is ultimately going to be a good fit for you. So awesome. Thank you so much for answering that question. Just for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and go to the next question here. So now we want to know, what school are you from? Tonight we're talking to students from around Illinois. This program is designed for students in every area of the state. So maybe you are similar to myself, to Myra. We are Chicago area counselors, so we live in this area, and I am seeing a lot of Fenwick, awesome, that's where Laura used to work, that's great. West Aurora, Libertyville, Marion Central. Awesome. So we have a ton of schools represented right now. St. Ignatius, Grant actually went to St. Ignatius College Prep, so he's representing that tonight. Well, he's representing Marquette tonight, but you know what I mean. Cool. I'm seeing Antioch all the way up in Antioch. That's awesome. Trying to see if I see any from kind of central Illinois or even downstate. Lane Tech, that's one of the schools I recruit for specifically. So, okay. This is awesome. Thanks so much for participating in that and kind of letting us know where you are coming from tonight. Have you already visited our campus? I like that we have these options, yes, no, and then does a virtual visit count? Because we are living in this season where we're doing a ton of virtual opportunities. And so this is something that I know a lot of students are engaging in virtual ways. And so we're certainly tonight, going to be talking a bit about what you would see if you were to have visited Marquette in person. But we're also going to give you some resources on how you can navigate your college search and really learning about Marquette, even during this time where a lot of things seem to be virtual. And then the next question, I think, is probably the most important, but maybe that's just because I didn't eat dinner before tonight's presentation. But Milwaukee is definitely a city known for its food. If you didn't know, Marquette is located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we definitely are known for having some really good food, so much so that students do, they have a Milwaukee bucket list of all the places that they want to go and visit and eat and have a great time before they graduate from Marquette. So which one would you choose? I'm seeing an overwhelming amount of people saying, don't make me choose, I want to have them all. You could have cheese curds for an appetizer, pretzels for dinner, and frozen custard for dessert. I mean, not the healthiest, but it sounds like a great Wisconsin meal. So, okay, this has been really fun. Thanks for playing along and going through those polls with us. That's the last poll we're gonna have this evening, so feel free to, you can close out that software if you want, kind of go back to the Zoom at this point. And now we are gonna go ahead and go to the next slide, which actually has a video that shares a little bit more about Marquette and some of the basic facts you need to know.
All right, folks, I do have to admit before I start speaking, Rosa, you know I have a sweet tooth. Why would you put all of those sweets right before? I haven't had much of my dinner either, but I just want to go and make a pasta, Pop-Tart, ice cream sundae dish like Elf. So thank you for all of that, all the goodness. All right, folks, well, my name is Grant Egan. I'm just like an admission counselor like Rosa, like Myra here. The main difference betwixt us three is I'm campus-based. So that means I live in Milwaukee. I do recruit down in Illinois. In fact, I'm from Illinois myself. I'm from LaGrange Park. And as Rosa had mentioned, I did go to St. Ignatius. So I have a lot of my roots in the greater Chicagoland area. And what I'm doing here tonight, as far as this presentation goes, is to give you an introduction to Marquette. Right now, you're going to find that acronym that we keep using again and again, that yourself with self-capitalized. Each one of those letters represents the 4 pillars of Marquette, which Myra is going to talk more about later. But know that I'm like her warm-up. She's the main act, and then I get to warm up, okay? So we set the stage for these first couple of slides, right? Now, we have to talk about students, like you folks, when we are talking about an institution like Marquette. It always, always, always comes back to the students. So if we take a look at our student population, our student body from, say, a 10,000-foot perspective, right? You're looking at us just from a very holistic perspective. You're going to find from a numbers, as far as the number of students at Marquette, but roughly 8,400 undergraduate students. Now that classifies us as a medium-sized institution. Why is that important? That means that as a medium-sized institution, you have a lot of the benefits that come with smaller institutions and a lot of the benefits that come with larger institutions. More specifically, at a campus like Marquette, with our size, you're going to find average class sizes are very comparable, almost identical to what a lot of students experience in high school, with roughly 23, 24 students. So as far as that student body perspective goes, you're going to be going to class with classmates. It's not just going to be people in a massive sea of this massive lecture hall where you don't really have that connection to either your classmates or your professor. It doesn't work that way. The vast majority of your classes are going to be very comparable to what you're already experiencing in high school. In fact, that was a bit of a misnomer, or perhaps a myth, that I really bought into when I was looking at schools. I just assumed every classroom was these 600, 700, 800 lecture hall people that you never got to know anyone. And I thought that's super boring. I liked my high school experience where I got to make some jokes with my classmates. And when you were in group projects, you get to know who's actually in your group, and you get to know their strengths and their weaknesses and what have you. I just love that interactivity that allows itself with a student population of just about 8,000 students. We have the ability for you to tap into that smaller feel, if you will, of that college campus. And yet at the same point, from our location in the city, and the way that our campus is oriented, it does feel a little bit larger. We're just a few blocks away from downtown Milwaukee. So you get the access. In fact, you can walk about 1 or 2 blocks away from our campus and you're in the thick of it. So if you're looking for a college campus that does have that smaller feel when you're on it, with the big green spaces and the ivy on the sides of the buildings and what have you, the students wearing the student with the blue and gold on their gear and whatnot, you feel that, right? You feel that sense of community, that at the same point, you have access to a much larger city environment for those looking for internships or professional sports to go and watch. Or heck, if you are going to be a professional sport, can I get your autograph now? Because I don't know any professional athletes, and that would be amazing. So all that goes to say is there's that access right next door. If you want to go see Broadway shows or see stand-up comedy, improv comedy troupes, the Brewers play a little bit away from campus. If you like baseball. So you have a lot of those big school feels, big city feel opportunities, but also still have access to that smaller feel that we've been talking about. So one of the nice things about being a medium-sized school, as you can tell from how much I enjoy talking about it. Other things to keep on your mind as far as numbers of Marquette student population: we do come from nearly all 50 states and roughly 70 countries. Roughly 25% of our students identify as students of color, and roughly 20% are first-generation students. Much more information about these quick one-off facts and figures can be found on our website, of course, but for the time being, that'll give you enough information to propel you through the rest of this info session. Now, we're going to start talking a little bit about the connection to the city I keep talking again and again and again about, because it really is an integral part of a student experience to, in fact, be part of the city, right? Now, what we're looking at currently is a picture of downtown Milwaukee and Marquette. Now, you might look at this picture and think, okay, this is a homogeneous piece of land. It is all the same. There's no depiction between what's campus and what is the city. And that is not true. In just a moment, I'll show you what really is our campus as it pertains to the greater city. But what I want to show is just from perhaps a map perspective, where you're looking at. So the majority of what you see is Marquette's campus, but over towards the horizon, you're going to see that dark blue, shall we say, bar across behind the skyscrapers. That is Lake Michigan. So it is the same lake that most of you have grown up knowing is towards the east. If you keep going east from your hometown, you're going to run into Lake Michigan for the most part. Same thing up here in Milwaukee. We're about 1.5 miles away from the shores of Lake Michigan to our campus. Now, in order to get there, you do cut through the downtown environments, the downtown area, the city center of Milwaukee. So if you're thinking about internships, you're thinking about research opportunities, you're thinking about co-op placements, all of that, there's an adage that says, where there are cities, there are jobs. And I think that's really indicative of as it pertains to the ease of a college student who is working their butts off to get their degree, but then knows that within a couple of blocks away from their campus, they can go walk and interview for a job at perhaps one of the 9 Fortune 500 companies that are headquartered in the greater Milwaukee land area. Or as Rosa shall we say, temptingly showed us earlier, with all of the restaurants that you could go and get those cheese curds and those pretzels and those custards and what have you. All of that is within an arm's reach away from our campus. Is really there's another comment that Marquette is known as the backyard playground for Marquette students, and I absolutely love that. I think it's a wonderful adjective. I love playgrounds. Okay. So what I want to show you now is that picture that we talked about with Marquette Marquette's campus. So everything that you see in color now, this is Marquette, right? The grayed out area behind it is the greater Cityland area. So there are no borders or gates or walls or fences that you would see if you're on campus, because we're a relatively open campus. A lot of the roads that cut through and bisect our campus do connect us to the city, do connect us out to the suburbs and the neighborhoods surrounding us. So another duality to campus, you know, we're very compact, but we talked about, that access to the city can feel much larger than it really is. Now, more specifically, if you're looking at the screen here, right in the center, underneath the S of Marquette's campus, that first S you see up there, that's going to be Wisconsin Avenue. That's the main thoroughfare that cuts right through the heart of our campus. Splits us in half between your academic half of campus and your social side of campus. So everything to the right-hand side of the road with all the red trees in the center of it, that's your academic half of campus. So no matter what you're going to go study, no matter the major you want to go into, what have you, all of your studies will be over there on that right-hand side of campus. That then means everything on the left-hand side is going to be your more social side of campus. That's where you have your residence halls, your dining halls, your off-campus housing. It's where the student union is headquartered. So it's where you fill your time when you're not actually in your classroom. It's where you live, right? Now, we do have a 2-year requirement for our students to stay on campus. Your freshman year and your sophomore year, you are guaranteed housing in one of our 9 different residence halls. Again, food is on my mind, folks, so I'm going to talk about the meal plan. It is an unlimited meal plan, so you are never going to have to worry about going hungry. Nor should you ever choose a school because of the meal plan, but it's a nice feature that you never have to call home to your parents or guardians and say, hey, can you give me some more money or can I get some more swipes? None of that. There's 5 main dining halls on campus, loads of coffee shops around the area, and of course, those are just the ones that are centered on our campus. You have access to the whole city's worth of food, as we talked about before. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is essentially the 4 pillars. So I'm going to pass it over to Myra so she can kick us off as to talking about what the self of yourself at Marquette is all about.
Thanks, Gran. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us in today. So as Rosa mentioned earlier, my name is Myra Rodriguez. I am also a Chicago Regional Admissions Counselor. So I'm also based in the Chicagoland area, and I get the pleasure to talk about the 4 pillars at Marquette that connect with our mission. As a mission-driven institution, these pillars really represent our community. Like Grant mentioned, Marquette's well known to be committed to their community, so Milwaukee, but we're also committed to really our own communities that we come from. So when we think about service, our students are definitely committed to community service. It is not a requirement at Marquette, and very few students leave Marquette without a service connection. So our students are using their talents, their skills, their attributes to really become active citizens within their community, whether that's at the local, the national, or global level. And they are discovering that the way to make a difference is by taking action. And that's going to look very differently for everyone. For me, for example, I had the opportunity to advise a group of students on a border awareness experience trip in El Paso, Texas, where we got to learn about the environments of people living and working near the border. We got to live simply. We got to reflect with one another through reflection time. It was a really rewarding experience, not only for myself, but for the students. So that's just a glimpse of one of the service opportunities that our students can take advantage of as Marquette students. About 85% of our students participate in service, and so they can connect with the Center for Peacemaking, the Center for Teaching and Learning, the Center for Community Service, or even campus ministry on different service opportunities they can take advantage of. So again, service is not a requirement, but it's definitely part of who we are, and we're really proud of our students who are engaging in civic work. One of our other pillars that we have at Marquette is excellence. So when we think about excellence, we really think about our students being innovative thinkers in the classroom. So we have 7 direct admit academic colleges. So as a student, you will be applying directly to one of our 7 colleges. And I won't go into the details about the application process because I know Rosa is going to talk about that in a little bit, but just know that you are directly admitted into your program. And you are also going to be taking courses in our core curriculum. We have 10 courses that are a part of our core curriculum. That is a requirement of all students, regardless of their major. And so again, our students are demonstrating excellence in their courses, but also in their activities. And so one of the things that I always like to talk about is graduation. What a great feeling for our students. I myself am a Marquette grad. I got my graduate degree from Marquette, and I've mentored so many students throughout my time in Marquette, and the experience of graduation is so important to them because they get to enter our large alumni network afterwards, and where they can continue to share their Marquette pride with others. And one of my favorite things that we do in our office is that we get recent graduates as well as well-known alumni to write letters to our admitted students about sharing their Marquette story and really congratulating them on their acceptance to Marquette. And maybe one day you will get a letter from one of our alumni and where you can hear their story and why they have so much Marquette pride and why this place really is important to their development. And one of the other components that we want our students to really develop as college students is that we really want them to become leaders. And not only do we want them to become leaders in the classroom, like when they're pursuing excellence, but we also want them to be ethical and informed leaders. And that we know takes different shapes and sizes. And I see students participate in advocacy work. I see students in research. I see them participating in mentorship programs where they can mentor their peers. So there are a lot of opportunities for leadership growth on our campus. And one of the examples that I always like to talk about is our student organizations. So we have more than 300 student organizations on our campus, and we have an awesome event called Organization Fest, also known as O-Fest, where our freshman students can see all the organizations we have available during their first week of classes. When I used to be based on campus, I loved attending this event in person because it was an adult version of Halloween, because everyone was handing out candy. And who doesn't like candy? I sure love chocolate, and so I was definitely looking at every student who was handing out chocolate, and I would bring my little bag with me and be like, I'll take one. Yeah, I'm not a student, but I'll take one. I'm a staff. Oh, I'll definitely talk about organization with prospective students. So again, there's a lot of opportunities for leadership growth on our campus, and I really want you to explore those leadership opportunities as a prospective student, because we really want you to find your niche on campus where you can have lifelong friendships, interact with students who are not within your college. So that really is the college experience outside of the classroom. And so I really encourage you to do so. And I have to mention one more thing. The other place where I witness students leadership skills is within our Marquette University student government, as well as our cultural student organizations. They're not afraid to get out of their comfort zone and really create change on our campus. And it's been awesome to witness throughout my 6 years at Marquette, the change that I've seen on our campus, because we definitely want our student voices to be heard. And so just know that if you choose to come to Marquette, you are going to matter, and our faculty and staff are going to care about you. And I think the reason for that is because we are a Jesuit Catholic institution, and so we really embrace you as a human being. We know, we appreciate all your different identities, and we accept students, faculty, and staff from all different faith backgrounds. And so I just want you to know that you are certainly welcomed on our campus. And being rooted in Jesuit values through my education and my work experience, I know the importance of developing the whole person. And so as an admissions counselor, I commit to really making sure that that your attributes and your aspirations, your goals are part of the college search process. So we really hope that you consider being Jesuit educated at Marquette. And Rosa's going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what it means to be the difference here and how we can help you be your best self through the admissions process.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you, Grant and Myra, for that information. I know it's a lot of information. It's a lot of facts that we want to make sure that you leave tonight just learning more about who we are at our core. And that's why we went through, all those core pillars that we really hold dear, but then also really navigating, well, what are those quick facts that I need to know about an institution in order to know, is that a place that I would feel comfortable applying? I know tonight we do have juniors and sophomores who are joining us as well. So thank you so much for being so proactive about learning about colleges and really starting to have a deeper understanding for what type of school you might see yourself with in the future. But tonight, I definitely know that there are a lot of seniors on the call as well. So I definitely want to make sure that we go through and acknowledge that there are going to be probably a lot of questions, and we've already seen a lot of questions so far in the chat about direct admission, about, so sorry, I went to the wrong slide. Grant, if you could help me out and get me back onto the appropriate side, that'd be great. But tonight, I know that there are a lot of questions about GPA, about, I'm sure, test score. There's a lot of questions about timeline and things like that. And that makes sense because seniors, right now, you're going through your college search. You are applying to schools. You're trying to figure out this entire process. So what we're going to talk about over the next, we have about 20 minutes left in the presentation. So go ahead and start thinking about any other questions that you have about Marquette in general, anything that we didn't cover related to campus life, student life, related to what is campus physically like. I know there were a couple questions already that I actually think would be good to address to the whole group, and I'll do that in just a second as well. But right now, we're going to hone in on talking about finding your fit and this timeline that you have in order to really figure this out. So I really like this timeline because the first thing that I noticed about it is that you have from now until May 1st to make your college decision. So I don't know about you, but if maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed or stressed or don't know where to start, I want you to take a deep breath with me. Ready? We're going to do this together. Breathe in and breathe out. You have until May 1st. Thanks for participating, Grant and Myra. I hope you did as well, Laura. But this is something that I just want you to take a deep breath about. You did, Laura, thank you. I want you to take a deep breath about this whole process, because what normally is a kind of overwhelming process or one that could feel a bit confusing or feel a bit overwhelming, it is made a bit more challenging now because of the season that we're in. And so I just want to acknowledge that, but I also want to let you know you have the tools to manage this and to do this. And you have people who are on your side, people like Myra, Grant. You will have people like Laura at your high schools who are helping you out in the process as well. So take a deep breath and know that you do have from now until May 1st to really feel confident in making that decision on what school is going to feel most like your home away from home. So backing up in process, where are we at now? We are in that admission process. So for Marquette, you have from now until December 1st to complete your application for Marquette. We are on rolling admission. What that means is once we have a completed application for you, we go ahead and evaluate that application, and we release decisions out beginning October 15th, and we get decisions out to students every 2 weeks or so. And so this is something that as soon as you have a completed application, and I'll go through what that means in just a second, you're going to be able to get a decision back pretty quickly. And with that decision, you're also going to be able to get back notification of a merit scholarship. We call that a Pair Marquette Award. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back and let you know, what does it take to have a completed application to Marquette? Well, the first piece is to submit the actual application. I know that seems, like common sense, but I think it needs to be said. The actual application can be found either on our Marquette website. We do have our own application if you would like to complete it there, or we are also on the Common application. If you are completing an application for maybe several other schools schools that are also on the Common Application, go ahead and put Marquette on there as well. No need to complete our application on our website as well. I get that question all the time. Is there preference for one over the other? No, there's not. You're going to have the same type of consideration for admission and scholarship, regardless of which application you fill out. Both of our applications, or I should say our application just generally, is free to fill out. So that's a barrier that we have removed for you as a student. So do not let the cost of applying deter you from applying to Marquette, since we do have that free application. You will then, at that point, after you submit the application, you will need to send in your official high school transcript. If that is inclusive of test scores, we will accept your test scores as official that way. But something that's really important to know about Marquette is that we are a test optional university. That's probably a big buzzword that you're hearing now, because there are a lot of schools that have recently gone test optional because of the lack of testing availability around the state of Illinois and other places in the United States. Something that I need you to know about our test optional policy: we were test optional before it was cool. We went test optional before it was a necessity to be test optional. So we have an entire year of test optional review under our belt, and we made that decision to become test optional based on our ethics, based on our values, based on things that we're really looking for in an applicant, and really determining, well, what do test scores actually tell us? And we found that, yeah, test scores could be an indicator of success, of future success at Marquette, but really all of these other characteristics that you submit on your application are just as valid indicators of success for you, and allows us to still make a really good decision on whether or not Marquette's going to be a good academic fit for you. What I mean by that, we review holistically. So we're going to be looking at all of these pieces of your application to make a really solid admission decision on whether or not we think Marquette would be overall a good fit for you. So we're going to be looking deeply into your high school transcript, looking at the types of classes you've taken during high school, how have you challenged yourself throughout your time in high school, but also taking into account, of course, the grades you've received in those classes. But rigor is really important to us. I saw a question earlier in the chat about averages, norms. We actually have this really cool website that maybe Grant or Myra could find and put into the chat for everyone to see, but we recently just posted academic norms by college, so you can get a feel for what kind of our averages are. So when we say norms, the reason why we say it that way is because we don't have a cutoff for test score or a cutoff for GPA. Rather, like I said, we're looking at all these characteristics to determine if you might be a good fit. So those other pieces that go into the equation, your essay is really important. Make sure that you are really utilizing your authentic voice in that essay. Let us know who you are. If you think about it, your essay and your activities list are really one of the only places in your application to really give us that qualitative information rather than quantitative, just test scores or GPA. So really share that quality of who you are, what would you bring to our campus environment. And then letters of recommendation, we will look at them if you decide to submit them, but they're not required. But if you feel that a teacher knows you really well, has really seen you overcome something in the classroom, has really seen your leadership or whatever characteristics they might be, letters of recommendation might be really helpful. So we take all those characteristics, we perform what's called that holistic review, and then we determine if you would be a good fit and if we would like to admit you to Marquette. If so, I already mentioned earlier, you will receive what's called a Pair Marquette Award. That's a merit-based scholarship based on those characteristics that you have provided in your application. And you're going to get notification of that in your acceptance letter. So not only will it be an exciting day because you're accepted to Marquette, but it will also be an exciting day because you will have received a scholarship to come to Marquette. And so that kind of kicks off that financial aid process. That's step one in our 3 parts of our scholarship and financial aid consideration at Marquette. The second piece of financial aid consideration is to file the FAFSA. If you've never heard of the FAFSA, what that stands for is the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, okay? This is something you're going to go to fafsa.gov to fill out. It takes the average family only about 25 to 30 minutes to complete their FAFSA. It utilizes prior their prior tax information. So that means that there should be no barrier as long as your family has filed their taxes in an appropriate time frame. There should be no barrier to be able to complete that FAFSA in a timely manner. We encourage all of our students to complete their FAFSA by February 1st. And then we start sending out our financial aid notifications in the middle of February. What that financial aid notification is it actually takes into account the scholarships that you've received from Marquette, as well as any other need-based financial aid you and your family might qualify for from that FAFSA, and it lets you know what your actual out-of-pocket cost is going to be to attend Marquette. And so our hope is that by that point in the process in February, you will have been able to gather all of your financial aid letters from all the different colleges that you're considering, and you're able to really compare the financial piece, as well as compare that academic piece, as well as compare that personal fit piece between all of the colleges. And then by May 1st, you're able to make that final decision on which school is going to be your best fit. There's one piece that I failed to mention in that 3-part of financial aid that we offer at Marquette. That final piece of financial aid or scholarship consideration, we actually have an additional scholarship application, and it is available to you after you are admitted to Marquette. And it's an additional scholarship application where you can apply for additional scholarships above and beyond that merit-based scholarship. It's called our Scholarships and Scholars Program application. So again, that's a little bit about the timeline. I know that in and of itself was a ton of information for one slide, but hopefully you stuck with me, and hopefully you are able to just kind of take a bit of a deep breath, understanding a bit more about that timeline and really what you need to be doing and thinking about over these next, 9-10 months. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and get it to the next slide. Grant, if you could help me out with that. I want to talk really quickly about some important resources, and then we're going to open it up in about the last 9 minutes or so for any other questions that Myra and Grant feel like the entire group should hear an answer to. But these are important resources that I really encourage you to check out. An overwhelming amount of you said that you have not visited Marquette yet, maybe not even in a virtual sense. And so first of all, thank you for tuning in tonight and checking us out in this virtual way. This was just a very, brief introduction into everything that we are at Marquette. So I would really encourage you to go to that marquette.edu, maybe take a photo of this slide, take a screenshot of this slide so you have that, that link for later on. Maybe even Myra can put it into the chat for you to be able to have it as well. But that is a whole list of about 200 different videos and resources that our entire campus population put together so that you can start exploring Marquette further. We do have Marquette virtual tours available on our website. We have department visits. I know Myra mentioned earlier that we are a direct admit institution. So rather than applying to Marquette just generally, you apply directly to one of our 7 colleges. So it's going to be really important for you to understand which college you want to submit your application to at Marquette. And so scheduling some of those department visits is going to be a really good way for you to know if the College of Arts and Sciences is going to be a good fit, or maybe health sciences. And so really trying to determine which one will be a good fit. We also have, bless you, Grant. We also have available individual appointments where you can schedule to meet with your individual admission counselor. So we're also going to put into the chat a link where you can find your specific counselor. We do have one more counselor who's on the Illinois team who was not able to be on the presentation tonight. Her name is Jeanette. So if you're tuning in to us from Illinois, you're going to have either Grant, Myra, Jeanette, or myself as your counselor. So if you would like to meet with us personally, you can do that as well. And then I'm going to go ahead, stop there so that we do have plenty of time to be able to address some of those questions that have come into the chat.
So I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut in, but one question is, how much is the peer Marquette scholarship?
Yeah,
Can you
that's a good
ranges,
question.
please, because I know that very well.
So it definitely does range. Last year, the average Pear Marquette award was roughly $17,500, but that does vary by student. And so if you are curious as to which Pear Marquette scholarship you might be eligible for, we actually have something on our website called the Net Price Calculator. That's a really helpful tool where you can actually go in and plug in some of that quantitative information things like your test score, your GPA. You can put that into the net price calculator, and it will give you a good estimate of maybe what you could expect, keeping in mind that we are still setting those scholarship amounts for this year. But yeah, that's a great question, and I know a lot of students are curious about that as well.
One other question that a lot of students are asking right now because of our current situation, but what about interviews? I know every college is different with that. So can you talk about Marquette's policy?
Yeah, great question. So we do not require an interview as part of our application process. However, if you feel that an interview would be helpful to you as you're going through the process, if you just feel like you have personal questions that you want answered, or you really feel like you just want to represent yourself and have someone get to know you more than what your application is really able to share, I really think that the reason why we do host one-on-ones is what we call them, since they're not an official interview. But we host one-on-ones, I think, because it's a really good way for us to be even more of an advocate for you in your admission process. So it's really helpful if we have some special admit programs, like our Doctorate of Physical Therapy program, or our Master's in Athletic Training, or even if you're kind of teetering on the lower end of some of our academic norms and maybe you're waitlisted. It's really helpful for you to get to know us so that we can better advocate for you in that admission process. So again, they're not required, but we definitely do have one-on-one availability. And I know that we each have our own specific calendar where once you figure out who your counselor is, then you can go and say, well, I want to meet with them personally. You can schedule that online. Yeah.
Thank you so much. There's no other questions open right now. I know a lot were answered individually, but
Grant or Myra, I do know that you were answering them as
they
we went along.
were. I was just going to say the same thing.
And I know that I answered some as well when I was not speaking. Were there any other like hot topic questions that it seemed like, you know, students were really curious about that we could go into depth about in the next 4 minutes?
Yeah, Rosa, do you think you can talk a little bit about the flexibility within colleges? So yes, we are a direct admit institution, but can students change their mind? Can they double major?
Yes. And that is a really important question too, because a lot of you who are tuning in with us tonight might be 15, 16, 17 years old. I'm 32 and I don't know exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I think that this is a really important question, very valid. You are not expected to know with absolute certainty what you want to do right now. That's okay. If you are a person who has always dreamed of being a nurse, you know you want to be a nurse, and you end up being a nurse, that's amazing. But there are a lot of students, the average college student changes their major probably about 3 times. So if that ends up being you, you're not alone. So while we are direct admit, and like I said, you are going to be applying directly into one of those 7 schools, you will be admitted directly into one of those 7 schools. If you end up changing your mind even before you enroll as a new freshman, or even after your first semester of freshman year, or even after, like me, I changed my major at the beginning of my junior year. I don't recommend that because it was pretty stressful trying to figure out how to squeeze everything in the last 2 years. But if you change your mind, you can change colleges. There's a lot of flexibility on campus to be able to do that. The only college that you cannot transfer into at Marquette is our College of Nursing. It is a pretty selective college of nursing, and we do have a limited number of spots because we have our nursing simulation lab, and we have clinical experiences and all sorts of things that there is a number, a cap limit on our College of Nursing. But any other college you can, you know, kind of transfer into on campus. You can also double major across colleges, and you can also major and minor across colleges. So a lot of students might say, well, I'm really interested in theology, but I want to major in, I don't know, engineering. They can have a major in engineering and still minor in theology, even though they're totally different colleges. So yeah, you're not expected to know exactly what you want to do right now. That's totally normal. And if you end up changing your mind, we'll help you through that process. Any other questions, Grant or Myra or Laura, that you've seen come through, or anything that we can address in the next 2 minutes?
I think One of the biggest ones was about, I just want you to revisit this, Rosa, if you could, about the minimum requirements. So minimum
Sure.
GPA, minimum, and you already said this, but I want you to repeat it one more
Yeah.
time, just so
Yeah.
everybody hears it, test scores.
I do think that it is worth revisiting and worth noting, because I think students get pretty caught up in well, what score do I have to meet, or what GPA do I have to meet? And again, holistic review really allows you to have that freedom and flexibility to present who you authentically are. And then if a school admits you, it's because we're a good fit for you academically. And if a school maybe waitlists you or denies you, maybe you won't be the best academic fit there. So that's okay too. But our academic norms, hopefully Grant or Myra has been able to put that link into the chat so you can all access it. But basically the middle 50%, so that means we admitted 25% of students that fell below this, 25% that fell above. The middle 50% of students scored between a 25 and a 29 on their ACT, between a 1222 and a 1360 SAT, and the average GPA is roughly between like a 3.4 to a 3.8 unweighted. So that's all we have time for tonight. I know we're going to get cut off, but thank you so much for, thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and definitely explore with us further in the future.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. When I end this in 30 seconds, it's going to give you a poll. So please fill that out, but also know that all of these individuals, Grant, Myra, and Rosa, are available to you for any advice you need, any help you need with applying to Marquette University. Have a great evening, and thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to StriveScan, and thanks to the Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling. Take care.
Everyone.